the Milwaukee Bucks have been forced into an impossible decision. As the regular season inches closer and closer, reports are starting to come out revealing that there is a battle going on in camp surrounding a lot of the Milwaukee Bucks' recent signings. So to break down the impossible decision the Bucks have and discuss what it can mean going forward as the season is getting underway very, very soon. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into that, if you're a part of the 86 or so percent who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're very, very close now to 1,000 subscribers. It's a big milestone for us, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy daily Bucks content. But we have a very interesting storyline to discuss today, and obviously the regular season is getting underway in a few weeks, and as a result, training camp is getting hotter and hotter. And a recent article dropped revealing that there is some crazy battles going on. Now, obviously, we know about a month ago the Bucks made a few signings. So they signed James Akingo and Liam Robbins. James is obviously a guard, and Liam Robbins is a big who played at Vanderbilt last year in college. But they also had another signing, former first-round pick, which we're going to get into in a minute here. But this is just some information to give you guys before this. So obviously, they made those signings, and then the roster was full. And at this point, it seems that things are pretty much set for the Milwaukee Bucks. We obviously know they made a lot of signings. DeLon Wright, Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, all these guys. So the NBA roster is set, and now the decisions that they have to make are surrounding two-way deals to see who can either, obviously these guys were both signed to Exhibit 10 contracts, but now it's about the two-way deals, who they're going to convert to two ways, and who could potentially see some time with the Milwaukee Bucks on a two-way contract. And an article dropped very recently saying Bucks new signing creates intriguing training camp battle, and the Bucks keep loading up on bigs. And obviously, we'll get into the depth chart for the Milwaukee Bucks here in a minute, and if these guys are actually going to have an effect now, this upcoming season, or going forward for the Milwaukee Bucks. But you can see this here. So Badji, Liam Robbins, and Andrzej Pasicnic, bear with me on my pronunciation there, could spar in Bucks camp. So they're talking about the different guys. So the first guy, obviously, is a third 7-footer that the Milwaukee Bucks have signed this offseason. Pasicnic was another guy who is inked to a two-way deal. So out of these three, Pasicnic is the only one who is on currently a two-way deal. If you remember way back, he was drafted in the 2017 draft with the 25th overall pick in the first round and played with the Wizards. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But he is the most interesting player out of these guys. But Liam Robbins is another guy who's battling. Basically, the article says that given that Pasicnic is on a two-way deal versus an Exhibit 10, he sits atop the roster hierarchy with these three. But that doesn't mean his spot on the roster is safe, as two-way slots come and go constantly. And if any of the other guys impress, including Liam Robbins, we'll get into in a minute, then the Milwaukee Bucks will notice. All three players will be fighting to prove their place throughout training camp in the coming weeks. So it's a very interesting thing to discuss here. So obviously, you look at Liam Robbins' stats. He was signed to a two-way deal. He played with Vanderbilt last year. He had a decent year. He averaged 15 points, 7 rebounds, and an assist per game. And at this point, we know that the Milwaukee Bucks are stocking up when it comes to Exhibit 10 contracts or two-ways on big men. And the reason for that is because we obviously know, if you look at the Milwaukee Bucks depth chart right now, they have Brook Lopez as their starting center. They have Bobby Portis as their second, their backup big. But you can see this here. Pasicnic on this depth chart is their fourth big. And now obviously they have Giannis as the third string big. But in this case, their third big man here is Pasicnic. So I think there is a world where he plays some sort of role, whether it's this year or into the future, with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now currently, again, he's on a two-way contract. He's not on an Exhibit 10, so he can play with the team and be up and down between the Bucks and the G League. But he's an interesting player because he was drafted back in 2017. He's now 28 years old. He had a decent season in 2019, 2020 with the not with the Milwaukee Bucks, with the Washington Wizards, where he had an okay rookie year. But ultimately, he is the most intriguing one out of these guys, but he is also the oldest, being 28 years old. So you're looking at this from the perspective of the Bucks. They're obviously trying to win now. They made all these moves, and we'll dive into those. But when you're looking at the depth chart here, they're lacking some bigs. And you look at Brook Lopez, who was dealing with injuries. He's supposed to be feeling a lot better than he has in a while, but last season he was dealing with injuries. Bobby Portis is very reliable. We love that, and we all love Bobby Portis, but at some point, they're going to need another backup big, and that is why they are signing so many bigs. Their third big that is 7 foot or taller in training camp. Now, the reason they're doing this is obviously so they can battle it out among each other, but the biggest issue for the Milwaukee Bucks right now is, when it comes to depth, especially between the G League Exhibit 10 contracts, is their bigs. Because you have a lot of guards. You have Damian Lillard, you have Chris Middleton, you have DeLon Wright, you have Gary Trent Jr., and you have some other guys like AJ Green. You have recently drafted AJ Johnson as well, who is a point guard who can factor in, especially if they really need somebody. So they're not really trying to sign Exhibit 10 guys or even two-way deals to guards. They have plenty of those bearing injury. You also have Pat Connaughton, who is obviously a two-guard but can help and slide and play a little bit more if he needs to. But when you're looking at the bigs, it's pretty thin there. And this, look at the depth chart. You're having Taurean Prince potentially sliding into playing the power forward spot, depending on what happens. And when you're going up against teams that are bigger, whether that's the Sixers with Embiid, whether it's the Nuggets, you need tall guys. And especially when you have, Brook Lopez is a very good shot blocker. He's a very solid defender at this point. But you're going to need to have a lot of rotations. And you see a lot of different teams out there now against guys like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, whoever it ends up being, Karl Anthony Towns, even just a lot of the big men in the league. You rotate through. Now, I'm not saying that the guys they signed to two-way deals are going to come in and play every single night. That's not going to happen. But there's going to be times, whether it's injuries, whether some things happen, that you're going to need to slide someone else. You're going to need another backup big, whether it's because Brook Lopez gets in foul trouble, Bobby Portis gets in foul trouble, gets ejected, something crazy like that. You need to have other guys ready to go. And in this case, they don't really have many other bigs. And that's why Pasecnic is a guy who they're keeping an eye out on. According to these reports, is really battling and is the favorite to stick with the two-way contract currently on the team. And it goes on to say that no matter how camp goes, all three players are tied to the Milwaukee Bucks one way or another. And obviously to start the season, the likeliest outcome is that all three end up suiting up for the G League affiliate, obviously the Wisconsin Herd, regularly throughout the upcoming season, which will give them an opportunity to develop and work on their craft. However, when you're looking at Pasecnic, he is 28 years old. And obviously, they're going to send him down probably to the Herd to start the season and see. But he could be a guy, because he's on a two-way contract, and assuming that goes through, could come up and play with the Bucks when needed, whether it's because of injuries, whether it's because of anything. Or maybe he shines. I mean, he was a former first-round pick 6 or 7 years ago now, so he obviously had the promise. He had an okay year with the Washington Wizards in his rookie season. And if he can mimic some of what he showed with the Wizards, maybe just be a big body to throw out. He's not going to be the best defender. He's not really a brute big man. But he can just be someone, a body you throw on the opposing team. And that's something that that's all you can really expect out of a two-way contract. So the decision now is who they're going to take, because Liam Robbins, again, he's been showing out a little bit. He went undrafted. He's got signed to an Exhibit two-way contract, but he's had some decent years in college. He's 23 years old. So if they want to go with the upside player and have the ability to bring up a guy like Liam Robbins into the Bucks system and play regular season games, they might decide to go with him on the two-way contract because they want to see more upside. Or they could go with the guy who, again, is a bit older in Pasecnic, has been around a bit longer, and is a guy that is a bit more guaranteed. But at this point, I don't think either of these guys are going to play a ton. Again, you have Brook Lopez, you have Bobby Portis, and you have other guys who can slide in. Tyler Smith is another fourth string guy. So there is some guys there that can play. But when you're looking at big bodies, they're signing all these 7-footers for a reason. And maybe Pasecnic could surprise a lot of Bucks fans if he ends up developing into the Washington Wizards at the time of the draft, even though the Magic technically drafted him, but the Washington Wizards, when he played with them, thought that he could be. But let me know in the comments section down below, what your thoughts are on these guys. Do you think that they should convert maybe a guy like Liam Robbins to a two-way contract, or should they stick with Pasecnic? Let me know. We'll see you guys tomorrow.